Naomi Williams had always imagined her first day at a high-profile company would feel like stepping into a dream, but nothing had prepared her for the quiet intensity of the lobby. Marble floors gleamed under crystal chandeliers, and the hum of polished heels on tile echoed like a warning. Naomi adjusted her blazer, her pulse quickening as her eyes caught the sleek glass doors behind which Jae-Hyun Kim, the CEO she'd only seen in glossy magazine spreads, appeared like a figure carved from authority itself. She tried to steady her nerves, reminding herself that she belonged here, she'd worked hard, earned her place and was ready to prove it. But as she stepped into the elevator and caught a brief reflection of herself, she wondered if confidence alone could survive in a world so sharply refined. The first meeting had her palms sweating. Naomi entered a room full of executives, papers shuffled, phones buzzed, and all at once Jae-Hyun's calm gaze found her. It wasn't intimidating, it was a quiet, almost magnetic presence that made her aware of every heartbeat. Her words stumbled at first, but he listened with an intensity that made her feel simultaneously scrutinized and valued. A misplaced file, a nervous laugh, and a subtle apology later, Naomi noticed his corner of the room shift slightly as if he'd leaned toward her without moving. Their eyes met again and for a brief second the room's chaos faded. She felt a spark of curiosity she hadn't expected, and she suspected he did too. By the end of the day, as Naomi walked through the glass doors into the crisp evening, she realized that something about Jae-Hyun Kim had already captured her attention. The questions in her mind weren't about the work or the company, they were about him, and whether he would ever truly notice her beyond the office walls. The office was quieter than usual that evening, the hum of computers and distant chatter replaced by the soft ticking of the wall clock. Naomi had stayed late, reviewing a proposal she wanted flawless. She didn't notice him at first. The soft click of the office door announced Jae-Hyun's presence before she registered the shadow by her desk. "Still here?" His voice was calm, almost casual, but there was an unmistakable weight to it that made Naomi's spine straighten. She swallowed and looked up, offering a polite smile. "Just finishing some work, sir?" Jae-Hyun's gaze lingered longer than necessary, as if assessing more than her progress. Then, in that quiet, commanding way that always made Naomi feel a mixture of nerves and intrigue, he leaned slightly closer. "I have a peculiar request," he said almost casually. "For an event tomorrow, I need you to pretend you're mine." Naomi blinked. "Excuse me?" Her voice barely betrayed the surge of shock. "Pretend? Here." She searched his expression for a hint of jest, and there it was, a subtle, almost playful curve at the edge of his mouth. "It's just for appearances," he clarified. "Nothing more. A simple act." Her first instinct was to decline, but the honesty in his eyes made her pause. There was no threat, only curiosity. Naomi's lips curved into a tentative smile, and she agreed. The tension of the moment shifted, becoming something strange and unspoken. As she stood to leave, Jae-Hyun steadied her with a hand on her shoulder. The gesture was brief but grounding. A hug, almost, in the way he held her just long enough to communicate reassurance without words. Naomi left the office that night feeling an unfamiliar flutter of warmth, realizing that this unusual arrangement had already stirred something deeper between them. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows, casting a soft glow over the polished office floors. Naomi felt the weight of the day pressing on her as she prepared for a presentation that could make or break the project she had poured weeks into. She adjusted her notes for the 10th time, heart racing, aware that every eye in the conference room would soon be on her. Jae-Hyun entered quietly as if sensing her nervousness. He didn't interrupt or scrutinize, his presence alone seemed to steady the chaos inside her mind. Naomi's confidence wavered for a moment, but when she began speaking, his calm gaze held her steady, giving her a courage she didn't know she had. Her ideas flowed more naturally than she expected, each point met with nods and murmurs of approval. And then, just when a tense discussion threatened to derail her, Jae-Hyun spoke. "That's an excellent solution, Naomi," he said, his tone carrying an unexpected warmth. The words weren't just praise, they were acknowledgement, validation, respect. The tension melted slightly, leaving a quiet space where only mutual understanding existed. As the meeting wrapped, Naomi felt a gentle brush on her arm. She turned to see Jae-Hyun offering her a supportive smile. Without a word, he guided her into a brief, grounding hug, just long enough to reassure her, just long enough to make her heart skip in a way work had never caused before. Naomi stepped back, cheeks warm, and realized that the office wasn't just a place of deadlines and pressure. It had become a place where she could feel truly seen. And in that fleeting embrace she caught a glimpse of something more, An unspoken promise that this connection with Jae-Hyun was just beginning, and that the spark they had ignited yesterday might be growing into something neither of them could ignore. Naomi had always walked home the same way, through the quiet streets lined with small cafes and boutique shops. But tonight, the familiar path felt different. Shadows seemed longer and every distant footstep echoed in her chest. She tried to focus on the soft glow of streetlights and the warmth of her scarf, but a nagging unease wouldn't leave her. It wasn't until a figure appeared behind her that fear gripped her. Quick, tense steps, a presence that didn't belong. Naomi's instincts screamed to run. Her mind raced, heart pounding, until a calm yet commanding voice cut through the tension. "Naomi." Before she could respond, Jae-Hyun appeared beside her, as if summoned by the moment itself. The stranger hesitated, then retreated, clearly recognizing the force that now stood with her. Relief washed over Naomi so suddenly it made her knees weak. Without thinking, she leaned into him and he held her firmly, protective, just long enough for the trembling to fade. Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The hug lingered, not a casual gesture, but one full of reassurance, a silent promise that she was safe. Naomi realized in that heartbeat how deeply she trusted him already, how naturally her body sought his presence when danger loomed. They stayed like that for a moment, the night quiet around them, until Naomi slowly pulled back. Her cheeks were warm, not from cold, but from a strange mixture of fear and relief, closeness and unspoken emotion. As she watched Jae-Hyun walk her the rest of the way home, Naomi's thoughts wandered. This wasn't just about safety or work anymore. It was about connection. A bond she couldn't quite define yet, but one that was steadily becoming impossible to ignore. The gala hall shimmered under crystal chandeliers, soft music floating through the air as elegantly dressed guests mingled. Naomi had never been to an event this grand. Every detail, from the sparkling decorations to the tailored suits, made her feel both out of place and strangely alive. She smoothed the folds of her dress and took a steadying breath, reminding herself she belonged here, even if just for the evening. Jae-Hyun appeared beside her, impeccably dressed, his presence immediately grounding. "Ready?" he asked, his calm voice carrying that familiar weight of quiet command. Naomi nodded, and together they stepped into the crowd, officially pretending to be a couple for appearances. At first the act felt awkward. Hands brushed in passing, smiles exchanged for the sake of optics. But as the evening unfolded, Naomi noticed the little things, how Jae-Hyun's hand hovered near hers, how his gaze lingered just long enough to make her heart flutter. At one point, navigating a narrow path between guests, she stumbled slightly, and he caught her instinctively. Their brief hug was simple, protective, and grounding, yet Naomi felt an unexpected warmth that lingered long after they separated. Throughout the night, their playful banter drew quiet glances from other guests, but Naomi barely noticed. She was captivated by the way Jae-Hyun made even the most crowded room feel like a small space meant only for them. When the evening ended and they stepped outside into the crisp night, Naomi realized she hadn't just survived the gala, she had enjoyed it. She glanced at Jae-Hyun, realizing the spark she had felt in the office now had a life of its own. The pretend had begun to feel real. The office was nearly empty when Naomi realized she had stayed later than usual. The hum of computers and the faint city lights outside the windows created a quiet, almost intimate world of its own. She was packing her bag when the familiar click of the door made her freeze. Jae-Hyun stepped inside, his expression unreadable yet calm. "Still working?" he asked softly, his voice carrying that quiet authority that had been both intimidating and comforting since day one. Naomi nodded, cheeks warming. "Just finishing up." For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them felt charged, not with tension but with something unspoken, a connection growing stronger each day. Then, almost hesitantly, Jae-Hyun leaned against her desk, his gaze softening. "You work too hard," he murmured, a rare vulnerability in his tone. Naomi looked up, surprised to see the man who commanded entire corporations showing such human concern. "I like to do things right," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. He smiled faintly, stepping closer until there was barely any space between them. Without a word, he offered her a hug, steady, reassuring, and warmer than anything she had expected from a CEO, a hug that spoke of trust and quiet admiration. Naomi leaned into it instinctively, letting the simple closeness carry away the stress of the day. When they finally stepped back, the world outside seemed sharper, colder, yet Naomi felt lighter. In that moment, she realized that their connection had shifted. Work was no longer the only thing tying them together. Something deeper, more personal, had begun to root itself in their quiet exchanges, their lingering touches, and the unspoken understanding growing between them. The weekend retreat was nothing like the city Naomi knew. Rolling hills, quiet lakes, and the soft rustle of leaves replaced the hum of traffic and the glare of office lights. Naomi couldn't remember the last time she had felt so peaceful. Even the crisp morning air seemed to awaken something inside her, a lightness she hadn't realized she was missing. Jae-Hyun stood near the dock, hands tucked into his pockets, watching the water shimmer in the early light. "You made it," he said simply, his voice carrying that calm certainty that always made her heart skip. Naomi smiled, feeling a flutter of warmth at the ease between them. Throughout the retreat, their time together was filled with small, ordinary moments that somehow felt extraordinary. Walking along the lake, Naomi laughed at his quiet teasing. Sharing a cup of coffee in the early morning fog, she caught glimpses of his softer side. The man behind the commanding CO, the one who noticed the little details and listened. At one point, while exploring a trail surrounded by tall trees, Naomi stumbled over a root. Jae-Hyun was immediately there, steadying her. Their brief hug lingered longer than necessary, comforting, grounding, yet charged with a warmth Naomi could not ignore. She felt herself leaning into the gesture, sensing the growing connection between them, a closeness that was neither rushed nor forced but natural. By the end of the day, as the sun dipped behind the hills, Naomi realized that this weekend had changed something. She was beginning to see Jae-Hyun as more than just her boss. And he, in turn, seemed equally drawn to her effortless charm, the quiet strength she carried even in her most vulnerable moments. The afternoon sunlight spilled through the office windows, warming Naomi's desk as she typed. She had been so focused on her work that she almost didn't notice the subtle shift in the atmosphere. Then she saw it, a woman laughing a little too close to Jae-Hyun, her hand lightly brushing his arm. Naomi's chest tightened unexpectedly. She told herself it was nothing, just a misunderstanding, but the pang of jealousy was real, unfamiliar, and unsettling. She tried to focus on her screen, but her mind kept wandering to the scene she had just witnessed. Jae-Hyun approached quietly as if sensing her distance. "Is everything all right?" he asked, genuine concern in his eyes. Naomi hesitated, then let herself breathe out what had been bothering her. "I saw you with someone," she admitted, her voice trembling slightly. His expression softened immediately. "She's a colleague." "Nothing more," he explained gently, taking a step closer. Naomi felt her defenses crumble under the honesty in his tone. Then, in a gesture that spoke more than words, he pulled her into a steady, reassuring hug. It wasn't hurried or casual, it was intentional, a silent declaration that she mattered more than any misunderstanding. Naomi rested her head briefly against his chest, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. In that embrace, all the uncertainty, the doubt, the jealousy dissolved. She realized, with a surprising clarity, that her feelings for him were stronger than she had admitted. And Jae-Hyun, so composed, so commanding, was capable of matching that feeling, responding with understanding and care instead of judgment. When they finally separated, Naomi looked up and met his gaze. For the first time, she truly recognized the depth of their connection. Naomi looked up and met his gaze. A bond built on trust, for the first time, she truly recognized the depth of their connection. No misunderstanding could shake. A bond built on trust, Naomi hadn't expected the conversation to come tonight. That no misunderstanding could shake. Dimly lit. Naomi hadn't expected the conversation to come tonight. Curiosity and concern pressing against her chest. And for the first time, she felt the full weight of curiosity and concern pressing against her chest. Searching his calm, unreadable expression. "There's something I need to understand," he sighed. She said softly, a sound that seemed heavier than usual, his calm, unreadable expression. "Sit," he said gently, a sound that seemed heavier than usual, feeling the gravity of the moment settle around them. "Sit," he said gently. Carefully, he shared the truth about his feeling the gravity of the moment, his responsibilities, the dangers he managed, carefully, and the life that had made him both powerful and cautious. His responsibilities, the dangers he managed, yet she didn't pull away. Made him both powerful and cautious. She absorbed his words. Naomi listened, the man behind the legend, yet she didn't pull away. The man who had been quietly protecting and understanding her since day one. To see the man behind the legend, the man who had been quietly protecting and understanding her since day one. "I don't know if I can handle all of this." Silence stretched between them, vulnerability softening her voice. "I don't know if I can handle all of this." Between them, lifting her hand in his. Vulnerability softening her voice. "I don't expect you to face it alone." Jae-Hyun closed the space between them, reassurance threading through every word. "I don't expect you to face it alone." He drew her into a long, steady hug, warmth and reassurance grounding through every word. Trust. Then he drew her into a long and steady melt away, protective, grounding, and filled sense of understanding and Naomi felt the tension in that embrace melt away. Naomi realized that love wasn't about ignoring the hard connection. It was about facing them together. Naomi realized that love wasn't about ignoring the hard truths. Had chosen her. It was about facing them together. Had chosen him. And Jae-Hyun, that hug carried more than dangerous world. It carried a promise. just as she had chosen, face everything side by side. That hug carried more than comfort. The city lights twinkled below as Naomi and Jae-Hyun stood on the balcony side by side. The soft night breeze twinkled below as Naomi and Jae-Hyun stood on the balcony of his penthouse. It felt like the world had narrowed, the soft night leaving only the two of them in a space that was theirs alone. Naomi turned to him, her heart full of emotion, leaving only the two of them in a space that was theirs alone. I never thought I'd feel this. Naomi turned to him, completely understood, full of emotion, she could no longer voice trembling with honesty. I never thought I'd feel this. Gaze softened, completely understood, his hand finding hers, she whispered, her voice intertwining naturally, as if they had always belonged together. His hand finding hers, you've changed everything for me, fingers intertwining naturally, his voice low but steady. They had always belonged together. I don't just admire you, Naomi. You've changed everything for me. Care for you, he said, his voice low but steady. For a moment, the city's chaos faded, Naomi, leaving only the quiet rhythm of their shared breaths. For a moment, then, without the city's words, Jae-Hyun pulled her close, leaving only the quiet rhythm of their shared breaths, warm, protective, then, and without tender. Words, Naomi rested her head against his enveloping hug, feeling the steady beat of his heart beneath her ear. Naomi rested her head against his tension, curiosity, the steady beat of subtle longing finally melted into something simple, pure, of tension, curiosity. They stayed like that, longing, letting the world move on around them, simple, feeling the beauty of a love that didn't need grand gestures or dramatic declarations. Letting the world move on around them. It existed in quiet touches, of a love shared laughter, grand gestures or dramatic declarations, and hugs that spoke louder than words. It existed in quiet touches. When they finally stepped back, supportive Naomi smiled, and hugs knowing that whatever challenges awaited them, when they finally stepped together. Naomi their hearts smiled, were no longer hesitant, knowing that whatever challenges awaited them in each other, they would face them together. Stronger than fear. Their hearts were no longer hesitant than circumstance. They had found a forever in each other, a bond stronger than fear, more enduring than circumstance.